Okay, we're continuing in Sefer Shoftim. We're on Perek Yudches, Pasuk Lamed. We're on the last two psukim of the Perek. So the people of Dan have conquered the city of Laish, and they have called it Dan. And now let's see what they do. We'll do Pasuk Lamed and Lamed Aleph together because there's a lot of problems with these two psukim, and they'll need resolution. Vayokimu lahem b'nei Dan es haposel, and the people of Dan established for themselves the pesel, the idol. V'Yehonasan ben Gershom ben Menashe, and Yehonasan the son of Gershom, the son of Menashe, Hu uvanov hayu chohanim l'shevet hadoni ad yoim galois haaretz. He and his sons were the Kohanim for this idol in the tribe of Dan until the day that the land went into exile, which will have to be defined what that means exactly. Lamed Aleph, Vayosimu lohem as pesel micha asher asa. Now you have the word vayosimu, and they placed for themselves the pesel micha which he made. Kol yemei heyos beis ha'elikim b'Shilo. All the days that the house of God was in Shiloh, meaning the Mishkan. Okay, so we have to understand that there's a number of difficulties over here. First of all, there seems to be a bit of repetition over here. Seems to be a bit of repetition. It says it twice. They made the pesel. Vayakimu, they established, and the Mitzvah says, Lios lavoda zar lavdo. They established it to be for an idol and to serve it. So what's Lamed Aleph? Vayosimu lahem es pesel micha. So it says ve'loka la'avdo. So we'll have to see what it means. In other words, they made it for an idol and then they made it for a god. What does that mean exactly? In other words, it seems that there's two psukim, and both psukim are saying the same thing, and it was for a certain period of time. So the Malbim tells us, where's the Malbim over here? So it says, Malbim says, initially they established the pesel to bring down spirituality, and afterwards they made the pesel the way Micha intended it, with the ephod and the truffim. So again, it's not exactly clear, but it seems to be there's a deeper level of idol worship that's happening. So Malbim is saying at the beginning was just the pesel, they only were in the pesel, and then they got involved with the ephod and the truffim and the other things that were there. Again, it's not clear what the difference is, so we're going to have to just wait till we do the piece of Reb Tzadok to explain all this. That's the first issue. Second issue is, if you look carefully in the text, it says Yonasan ben Gershon ben Menashe. Yonasan the son of Gershon the son of Menashe. Now you see that nun is a little bit elevated from the other letters. Do you see that? Do you have a text there? Do you see the letter nun in the word Menashe? It's a little bit higher than the other letters. So the reason it is so is because that nun. There's one other time we had nuns that are very awkward, if you recall. In Parshas Baloscha, in the Parsha Vahi bin Saron, there are reversed nuns before and afterwards. So whenever you have a nun that looks awkward, it means something, and it usually means that the nuns don't belong there. So this nun does not really belong there. If you take out the letter nun, you're able to spell the word Moshe. You see.
Like we did.
So really it's Yonasan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moshe. He's a grandson of Moshe. So number one, to take away the insult to Moshe, that should be recorded that he had a grandson that was so terrible. So in honor of Moshe, the Torah, for all that Moshe did, we cover it up. Number two, by putting a nun in, it's like the word Menashe, it's saying that Yonasan acted like the wicked King Menashe, who was later one of the worst kings of the Jewish people, who certainly got the people very much into idol worship, and that's what this Yonasan was doing. So we're hinting to the fact that they put the nun in to make him to correlate him to Menashe, that he's just as bad as what Menashe did.
But he was before the kings, no? This is before.
I understand, but you know, the authors know what's going to happen down the line, and they're going to understand that there's a wicked guy like Menashe.
Well, this has nothing to do with the tribe of Menashe.
Nothing to do. Well, not really.
See, I was thinking that this is Menashe, Yosef's son, and I heard that this is Yosef's great grandson doing this.
No, but it's not. It's not. Now he's from the tribe of Levi. We already said he's from the tribe of Levi. Now there's something very interesting over here.
Menashe was the king.
Who?
Menashe.
Later, hundreds of years later, he was a wicked king of the king of Israel, and he got them into idol worship. Now there's something very interesting over here, and it relates to this week's Torah portion as well. When the Jewish people sinned with the sin of the golden calf, Hashem tells Moshe when he's up at the mountain, he says, you know, your people have sinned with the golden calf. So it's like when a child is bad, so the wife says to the husband, you know, your son's been very bad. As if it's like he has all the father's bad genes in being bad. It's like, why is the Torah saying, why is Hashem saying, you know, Moshe, your people are bad? No, what do you mean they're not your people, Hashem? So Rashi over there explains, because Moshe had a tremendous amount of mercy. And Rashi mentions one incident, and then later on another Rashi in the parsha is going to mention a second incident. But Moshe had a lot of mercy. The Egyptians wanted to convert, and because they wanted to convert, Moshe had Rachmanis, they're leaving. So let's take them along. You know, they want to be part of the Jewish people. Hashem said, I don't know if that's such a good idea. I don't know if they're converting for the most sincere reasons. And indeed, we find who were the ones that were pushing the golden calf. It was the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. Those are the ones that Moshe took aboard. So Hashem's saying, see, your people are the ones who have caused the problem over here. And similarly, when Aaron took the gold and put it in the furnace, and he was hoping that it would take a long time for something to develop from that, and by the time Moshe would come down and be before that anything could have been made. So there is a particular individual who knew the special mystical words to say from the forces of evil, and did his hocus pocus on the gold that was in the furnace, and out came a living calf. Who was that man? Who was that terrible person who used the power of evil to make the golden calf? None other than Micha. Micha!
Oh, Micha?
Micha!
Oh, my God.
Okay. What do we know about Micha? Well, Micha, why do we have the name Micha? Micha comes from the word to crush. To crush. What does that mean? Well, when Moshe Rabbeinu was in Mitzrayim, and he saw all the terrible things that Hashem was doing, he saw this terrible Holocaust that was happening. And one of the things he would see is if a parent came back one day from work and they say, where's your quota of bricks? He says, I couldn't do it all. It was too much. It was too hard. He said, you don't have your quota of bricks? We're throwing your son into the wall and he'll fill up the quota. That's something even Hitler didn't think of. Right? Can you imagine? You have this wall, a row of bricks, now you put this baby right into the row of bricks, you plaster him in, and the baby's crying, Abba, save me, and the parents can't do anything. So Moshe is watching this, and Moshe says to Hashem, how can you do this? This is so cruel. Hashem says, I know what I'm doing. He says, Hashem, look, how could it be this baby, a nice little baby? He's been crushed into the wall. You're going to leave him there. So Hashem says, listen, I know what I'm doing. If you want to get involved, it's not my affair. So what does Moshe do? He is, after all, an Egyptian prince, so he can do things that he wants. He goes in and he orders the baby to be removed from the wall. And the baby lives. But, he must have had a few physical deformities a little bit because he was crushed into the wall. Anyway, this baby was Micha. This baby was Micha. So when the Jewish will sit with the golden calf, Hashem says, look at what your people have done. So it's kind of funny. It's where Moshe is being, Hashem's rubbing it in on him. It's like, see Moshe, I told you, you didn't listen. So it's kind of weird. Is Hashem this kind of a God? He says, I told you so. Usually that's not a very effective means of chinuch. So the commentators explain, based on what the Shem Mishmul says, he says something very beautiful, which we mentioned on Tuesday morning, but it can bear a little repeating. That the question that is asked, why did Hashem divide up the giving of the Torah into two parts? He gave the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, meaning to say he spoke the 10 Commandments. But then 4 days later, Moshe Rabbeinu is supposed to come down with the tablets. And those tablets have exactly the same thing that the 10 Commandments that were said. So one was the verbal version, the other is the hard text. So the question is, why didn't Hashem give it all on the 6th of Sivan? It's not beyond Hashem's ability. Why didn't Hashem do like this? Why didn't Hashem say, okay, Moshe, come up the mountain. I have the luchos ready. They're ready. And as a matter of fact, Hashem could have had Moshe go up the mountain 40 days earlier and study all the Torah. And then come back down and say, okay guys, get ready, tomorrow is going to be the big performance. And then Hashem could have had like a 3D performance. He could have Moshe come to the mountain, holding the tablets in his hand. Hashem could then be uttering the words, I am the Lord. He could have the letters on the tablets light up. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. You get the full experience in one time. Why did Hashem divide up the experience into two? So the Shem Mishmul explains that to be a Jew, you have to have two talents. The first talent is intellectual maturity, and the second one is emotional maturity, which means as follows. To be a Jew and to follow the Torah, so Hashem will make certain commandments that we don't necessarily agree with. Hashem could say, I want you to keep Shabbos every week. The person could say, well, you know what? It's tough in this economy to do this. Maybe once a month, but every week, I can't accept this. Hashem says certain things we have to do. You have to be honest in business. If you're honest in business, you're not going to make a living in this world. Nobody makes a living in this world being honest in business. Whatever. So the person can say, so you have to have the intellectual maturity to know that Hashem knows better than you. Hashem knows better than you. Hashem knows that if He tells you to do something, it's not going to hurt you. So, but Hashem offered the Torah to the nations of the world. The nations of the world said, what does it say in the Torah? If it agrees with our lifestyle, we'll accept it. So Hashem B'davka picked something that He knew wouldn't agree with them. Told Esav not to kill Yishmael, not to steal, so they rejected it. They did not have the intellectual maturity to handle this. When He asked the Jewish people, do you want the Torah? The Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll do, and then we'll understand later. We're ready to take on whatever you're going to offer us. So Hashem said, I see you have the intellectual maturity, so I can give you the Torah. But that only passed level 1. It passed level 1. And level 1 is, therefore, you have the intellectual maturity, so I will tell you the 10 Commandments. But then, so in their brains, they're okay. But now comes the next step, which is no less important, is that understanding has to now move from the brains and has to move into your heart. And now you have to develop an emotional maturity. What's an emotional maturity? Well, intellectual maturity means that what God does rubs against your intellect, and you have to be mature enough to know that your intellect isn't always right. Okay. And there was a similar concept that God will do things to you in your life that will cause you great emotional distress. And usually a person goes with his emotions even more than he goes with his brains. And a Jew has to understand that they have to have the maturity to know that your emotions are not necessarily true, and that you cannot allow yourself to behave based on your emotions either. Just like you can't behave based on the way you think things should be, you can't do things based on how your emotions feel. So if, let's say, somebody embarrasses you, embarrasses you in front of everybody, and you really feel very embarrassed. So now you're emotionally hurt. So now what do you want to do in response to that? You want to get the guy back. Now, it's not a question of God says, wait a minute, it says in my Torah, you can't speak Lashon Hara about something. You can't take revenge. And the guy is not saying, well, I don't understand intellectually, this doesn't make sense. No, a person understands very well they're not supposed to take revenge. There's no question. If I ask you, is it a good thing to take revenge? No. It's a good thing to talk Lashon Hara? No. But the guy says, yeah, but he just hurt me. He hurt me. And I have to get him back. But what about the other things? The mitzvah doesn't apply to him. He's a Russian. In other words, it's your emotion that's dictating your behavior, not your intellect. And the difference is, intellect, perhaps you can reason with it. Perhaps you can reason with it. But emotion, you can't reason with emotion. Emotion is so strong that the person just goes with the flow of his emotions and just reacts the way the emotion says. So Hashem says, not only do you have to have the intellectual maturity to live a life of Torah, you have to have the emotional maturity as well. And you have to understand that no matter how you feel, you still have to follow what it says in the Torah. And you have to believe that there's a God, and God knows what He's doing. So what does God do? So this is step 2. And that's what the luchos represent, that emotional maturity. So now, they passed step 1, that intellectual maturity. So Hashem says, I will utter and speak for you the 10 Commandments. But now, you're going to have to show to me that you have the emotional maturity to be able to handle this Torah even when there's emotional challenges. So that's why Hashem crafts and creates the whole scenario of the confusion that the Jews thought that the 40 days was a day earlier than what Moshe thought. And then he gets the Yetzer Hara to give them all kinds of visions of Moshe Rabbeinu being dead and him not coming back, and causing a situation where the Jews are alone in the desert without a leader, in a scary desert where there's no food and water if the manna doesn't continue, if the water doesn't continue. And the people figured, if Moshe's not here, it's not going to happen. So he caused them a tremendously powerful emotional crisis. And did they have the maturity to listen to what Hashem says in this crisis, which says, thou shalt not make a graven image? And they didn't have it. They didn't have it. And forever we suffer. All suffering that happens in the history of the Jewish people all comes back to the sin of the golden calf. They didn't have the emotional maturity to handle that crisis. And therefore they could not yet be recipients of the Torah. Oh, that's very nice. So now, when Hashem tells Moshe, your people have sinned, so Hashem has to tell Moshe what the nature of the problem is. Not just this. Moshe's going, I don't understand. How could they sin? So Hashem says, it's your people who sinned. What does that mean? I'm explaining it to you. Moshe Rabbeinu, these people didn't have the emotional maturity on their level. Well, they're your people. And guess what? It basically is reflecting a time in your life where you did not have the correct emotional maturity. And when did you not have the emotional maturity? When you saw this baby being thrown into the brick. And you see this baby put into the brick, and now you're questioning how Hashem runs the world. Emotional maturity means that you believe that Hashem knows what He's doing. Just like when you read in the Torah that you don't work on Shabbos, and you say, I don't understand this. How can a person live if they don't work on Shabbos? It doesn't make any sense. In my mind, it makes no sense. So you have to have the maturity. No, Hashem's mind is smarter than your mind. Okay, now, but that's in a mitzvah per se. But now we're talking Hashem is a baby is being thrown into the wall, right? And lots of babies are being thrown into the wall. So now you're seeing history evolve in a way that doesn't make sense. Hold on, I know what you're going to ask. Hold on. So history is evolving in a way that says, if there is a God, this would not be happening. Where is God in the Holocaust? God, you're a loving God, and there's little babies. What did they do to deserve to be destroyed? And that's what Moshe was asking Hashem. He was saying to Hashem, I don't understand. How do you run this world? So Hashem says, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. You know, these were Gilgulim. These were Gilgulim from the 4 generations that were disgusting. The generation of the flood, the generation of stone, the generation of Enosh. Those generations, the generation of the Tower of Babel, there are certain Gilgulim, people had to come back, and they had to suffer to finish up their tikkun. And you don't understand all the calculations, only I do. And guess what, even more than that, and any of these that have been killed because they were wicked, and nothing good will come out of them. You don't trust me? Let's save just one. Let's save just one. So who do they save? Micha. And that's the one that makes the golden calf. If not for the golden calf, the Jews wouldn't have sinned. We'll save the Egyptians who want to convert. I'm telling you not to. See what happens from them. They want that calf. So Moshe is showing. So Hashem, Moshe says, what's going on? He says they have the same emotional immaturity that you had. If you would trust me, this wouldn't have happened. But you didn't. So that's fine. That's okay, because I guess we have to show that the Jews didn't have that maturity. So it's better it comes out. Now, of course, you may ask, well, aren't you supposed to save a person's life? You know, sometimes there's something called decrees. It's not just one baby, it was all the babies, and you're not going to save all the babies. It was impossible to save. Can you imagine Moshe would come to Parah and say, save all the babies? Parah says, get out of here. So Hashem says, don't you see what we're doing? These people are meant to die. And Hashem was telling him that. Now it doesn't mean to say if you see somebody who's sick, just let him die. Because there's a mitzvah of the Torah that says you heal the sick. But there's certain situations where God is calling the shots. And God is saying, this is what is going to happen. Right? In the Holocaust, God says, there's going to be 6 million Jews dying. And no matter what you do, you could try as much as you want, they're going to die. Doesn't mean to say you don't try to help them. Doesn't mean you don't try to help them. But at the end of the day, those that die are meant to die. And you can't say, I can't believe in a God. I cannot believe in a God who killed 6 million Jews. Why can't you believe in a God? Why not? Because why? Because emotionally I can't take it. So don't trust your emotions. Now it doesn't mean to say you shouldn't feel bad. It doesn't mean to say you don't mourn for them. But the way you approach it, say, for whatever reason, that God understands that these people had to die. I don't even know why they look like very nice people to me. I don't understand everything, but I know one thing: he's smarter than me, and therefore I still put on Talis and Tefillin tomorrow. I don't start worshiping different idols. There are other idols. There are certain organizations who feel that if we keep telling the non-Jews we don't like what they're doing, that's going to stop a Holocaust, while Jews aren't keeping Torah. So that's a different idol. It's the same golden calf. We're going to tell York University that they shouldn't be anti-Semitic. Okay, listen, I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but don't think it's going to stop them. There's only one thing that will stop them. How come you people are telling York University not to do this? How come you don't keep Shabbos? God told you. Why shouldn't they kill you? They don't like you. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's a lawless world. And you're Jews, and you're the minority, so they can do what they want with you. No, it's not right. Who says it's not right? Which moral codes? Who says there's anything called a moral code? You tell me about your moral code. You Jewish people who sleep around with other Jewish people. You Jewish people don't keep God's moral code. So there's no moral codes. Either you believe in there's a moral code. Who makes up the morality? God makes up the morality, not your liberal-minded understandings of life. Not that you decide to change Judaism, turn it on its head, and then you're going to be the ones who decide what's moral and what's correct. Right? So you can't have it both ways. So that's your idol. That's your idol. That's your idol. So you got to understand. You got to drop back and go, whoa. God's doing terrible things, and this is very hard for me to take. That's okay. I feel it's very bad. That's okay. But you got to realize God knows what He's doing. So Moshe, that was the problem with golden calf, and that was as bad as, and Moshe's nature was. He was a big merciful person. He says, I can't take this. I can't take this. I have to do something. I says, now is not the time to do it. I'm telling you, now is not the time to do it. Do not save him. What do you mean do not save him? I'm telling you not to save him. I know better. No, it cannot be. I says, okay, you try it. So now look how deep this goes. It's mamish, we're learning both in Yonim the same week. So So not only is he going to make a golden calf, okay, that's going to get the Jewish people to go away from Hashem, and this is going to be a sin that keeps haunting us for the rest of our history. But he's going to take your Einakol. Micha's going to take your Einakol, your son, your grandchild. When he's in his crisis, searching, trying to find his place in life, he's traveling place to place, and he's going to offer him the job of being a priest for idol worship. And he's going to take your Einakol, as the Torah says, and he will become a priest for you. And Micha got him into it, and then Shevet Dan just continues it, but it was only because he fell into Micha's hands. And not only that, but it says Bana, it says Yona's son, who? Ubanav, and his children. Now I want to ask you, if Moshe Rabbeinu would have been told, Moshe, I want you to know, that Micha that you're saving is going to, now remember, let's understand one more thing. What's worse in Jewish law? What's a bigger crime in Jewish law? Murdering somebody or taking them away from the path of Yiddishkeit and having them live a non-Jewish life? What is worse according to Jewish law? It's a Gemara.
Taking
away from a Jewish life. A lot of people wouldn't agree with it. So what are you talking about? You're killing the guy. What can be worse than that? Killing him, you're only killing this world. The Jews who died in the Holocaust, a good many of them were going right to Olam Haba. Right to Olam Haba. So that's the whole goal of life, is get to Olam Haba. Okay, it's not right that you cut down their life, but at least they went to the gas chamber singing Ani Mami B'Emunah Shalema. The big Kiddush Hashem they got, that Olam Haba they got was unbelievable. Every Jew who walked into the Holocaust, walked into the gas chamber, says Ani Mami B'Emunah Shalema. They got a very beautiful place in the world to come. Okay, they had a little temporary, terrible time, but eternally they're in great shape. Eternally they're in great shape. Now, what about a Jew who falls into being a Jew for Jesus? He's going to have a very nice physical life. He could have a beautiful life. He could be rich and famous and this and that. When he comes to the next world, Zippo. He eternally has nothing. What's worse? What's worse, obviously? What's worse is to take a person away from his Yiddishkeit. So Moshe Rabbeinu, you were upset that this little baby was dying al Kiddush Hashem, and you figured you're going to make it better, and you take him out. That very baby is going to kill your grandchildren eternally, and your great-great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren eternally be killed because of him. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, well, how was I to know that? And so Hashem says, you weren't. You only don't know one thing, that I know what I'm doing. And you just have to trust me. You have to have emotional maturity to know how terrible it looks. There is a God who knows better. And this is what the Torah is teaching us. And Hashem says, but Moshe was a good guy. For Achmanism, I don't want it to say specifically it was Moshe's grandson. That would really be hurtful to him. So we'll hide it. Right? So that's where the whole story. So you have three events: the Exodus of Egypt, the story there, the sin of the golden calf, and the Pesel Micha. They're all connected in that way.
How could it be he was the grandson of Moshe?
What do you mean, how could it be? What's the problem?
Very young Moshe when it happened, that with the time of the break, when Hashem, before they got out of Egypt, it will be his grandchild there.
It could be an older guy. He was an older guy. We don't know that Pinchas lived hundreds of years. Pinchas lived hundreds of years. Well, let's say Moshe. I don't think it's a problem at all. Moshe was, let's say, 20 years old at the time.
Right.
She's 20 years older. Now, when did the story of Pesel Micha happen? So, according to most opinions, it happened shortly after Yehoshua no longer lived. Okay, so.
That's okay. Now, in the time they put him in the break, he's his grandson. He's very young.
No, he's not his grandson.
No.
So his grandson is already, could be a few generations, the son of Gershom. Gershom doesn't come into the scene till much later.
Micha wasn't his grandson.
Micha was not his grandson. Micha was the person who influenced Moshe's grandson. That's what I'm showing you how even worse it is. Moshe saved Micha.
Which was not
Micha was not his grandson, was Stam a Jew.
Yeah.
And that Micha was the one that his grandson, Moshe's grandson, Yonasan,
He took him in.
who's looking to find a place in life, he stumbles upon Micha, and Micha says, go be my priest.
Okay.
Go be my priest. So Moshe, the very one that you saved, what's the matter? The very one that you saved is the very one that's going to destroy your family. Do you understand?
Okay.
That's how that comes. So God doesn't know better. Can you imagine what happened if Moshe would not have saved? Imagine if Moshe would not have saved this baby. No, what would have happened? There would have been no golden calf, right? And then you wouldn't have had this Micha, and you wouldn't have all this idolatry that came from Shevet Dan. This all came out of a very sincere desire to be a human being, to help another human being in trouble. When God said, I don't want you to help. So only God can do these kinds of things. So you have to learn a lot of trust from that. So if Hashem does things that is not to your liking, you have to realize, but if there was a better way to do this, don't you think God wouldn't have found a better way to do this? This is the best way that has to be. So if you trust Hashem, it ultimately works out. You might not see the results in this world. You may have to wait till the next world to see the results. But you see the results.
So how are you supposed to know when you're not supposed to help?
How are you supposed to know when you're not supposed to help? The situation itself will show you. Will show you.
It's pretty vague.
The situation itself will show you.
If you in a situation where you see someone is in imminent danger, and you know you can help.
So then the Torah says you're supposed to help. Torah
so
says,
Moshe was in that situation.
No, but God told him not to.
So
God said, I know what I'm doing. That's what the Medrash says. He said, I know what I'm doing. Better leave them in here. It's not just Moshe on his own. Hashem said, I know what I'm doing.
God doesn't talk to us like he talks to Moshe, we have no choice but to help.
So again, you know what it means? If you're going to have to do things in a way that violate the Torah, then you know you shouldn't be doing these things. There are certain situations in which for example, somebody is dying from heart failure, right? And let's say the only way to save him is with a heart transplant. Okay, are you allowed to do it? No, you're not allowed to, because a heart transplant requires that you must take the heart off of the dying person before they die, and therefore hasten his death. The guy could be brain dead, whatever. I'm not getting into all the halachic issues when you can, when you can't. But I'm just saying, we'll set up the scenario where it's the classic example where the donor is not yet dead, but he's going to die. It's no question he's going to die, right? You can't take the heart. The heart transplant doesn't work from a dead person already. If they're totally dead, it's not good. They have to be a little bit alive. Moshe Feinstein says, the classic case, I'm not saying you might be able to craft the scenario, I don't want to get into the details, that's not important, but let's say a classic case where you are prematurely causing the donor to die, but it's to save a life. But the Torah says you can't do that. Finished. But after save a life, the guy's going to die anyway, but God says you can't do it. So that would be a classic example where you can't do it. Now on the other hand, if someone's having a liver, right, problem. It's the liver, right? You can kidneys. Well, no, I'm saying there's certain cases where
marrow transplant.
Where you get marrow transplant. Yeah. So God says you shall heal the sick.
Yeah.
So go and heal the sick.
Yeah.
Do what you can. Right. So that's where you have to stay within the guidelines of the Torah. So the Torah is God telling us what we can.
That example really doesn't apply to this situation.
What do you mean? What do you mean? It certainly applies.
This is a situation
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
There's no halachic reason why you can't save the baby in a brick. So if you see a baby in danger...
But it's more than that. It's people saying, I've gone through terrible situations and I don't accept what God says anymore. That's the deeper understanding here. That's the deeper understanding. Why is it that people all of a sudden they don't want to do their mitzvahs anymore? What happened? It's because Hashem isn't doing things the way I want them. You know what? I'm in a bad mood. I'm not going to davening today. Why not? Because I lost my job. So what? I'm mad at God. Well, no, that's not an answer. You keep davening. It goes beyond that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I just think
if people have to do, there's a lot of times where to your own self-interest, you have to violate halacha. You have to violate halacha. That's the word of God. You have to know everyone has their situation where Hashem tests them. Let's say the guy really has parnasa problems. I mean, immense parnasa problems. He's going to lose his house. He's going to lose his marriage. He's going to lose everything. And if he works on Shabbos, it'll all be better. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do? Hashem, you're the one who gave me these problems. If you give me back, so I must have to work on Shabbos. That's all. Because what do you mean? Do you want me to lose my house? What do you mean? You want me to starve to death? It's not a joke. People get very emotionally distraught over parnasa issues, and there's a lot of people who were keeping Shabbos who have stopped keeping Shabbos because of the economy. They stopped keeping Shabbos. They stopped sending their kids to Jewish day schools. Right? And that's not the will of God. That's not the will of God. The will of God is you're going to have to find a way to not work on Shabbos and still keep your kids in a Jewish day school. But that means we're going to lose our RSPs. So you lose it. What do you mean lose my RSP? How am I going to let my get older? Let me worry about it. No, I have to take care of it. That's idol worship. It's the same thing. I can't give tzedakah this year. Why not? Because I might lose my job. I've heard people say this. They ask people to give to the shul. They have their jobs. They're making a good living. And they say, I can't give. Why not? Well, the economy is not so good and I could lose my job. The person still has that job for the last 2 years. Do you understand? I could lose my job. If I lose the job, then I'll have to go into my savings, and therefore I can't give you from what I have. I have what to give, but I could lose it, so I can't give it. What am I going to tell them? You can't tell anybody anything, right? When you're asking for money from people, you got to say, I respect your opinion. What else can I say? But what do you mean? It's a mitzvah to give tzedakah. People are not giving a tenth of their money to tzedakah because I might lose my job. And if I might lose my job, then Torah says, don't give money that you'll have to collect money. But right now Hashem has given you. But I could lose it. It's 2 years. The guy still has his job. Still has it. So at least give from what you were going to lose the job from 2 years ago, which you didn't lose.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the same thing. A person has to realize that Hashem says to do things, and you have to, and in spite of the fact that you're emotionally not prepared to listen to what Hashem's doing, you got to do it. It's all the same idea. You want to say it's telling about letting a person live or die, all these things. Let's reverse it, shall we? Let me even reverse it. They tell you, lo aleinu, that they tell a person your parent is 89 years old. They're having their kidneys are in failure. They're having trouble breathing. Pull the plug. And let's even take it further. That it's before the time when you can drug them up and they don't feel anything. The drugging doesn't help that much. The person's suffering. You got to pull the plug. What does the Torah say? What does the Torah say? No, but he's suffering. What kind of mensch are you? The person can live another 3-4 months, but the person, I don't want to eat anymore, I want to die tomorrow. I want to die tomorrow. I called Dr. Kevorkin, a rich and famous person who had everything in their life. They're 75 years old. They told they got 4 months to live. It's going to be very painful to the end. They called Kevorkin, come here. I want to end it right now. You're allowed to do it? No. Why not? What are you talking about? What's the matter? Aren't you a humanitarian? This person's having a terrible quality of life. It's exactly the same. It's exactly. People do it every day. People do it every day. They kill their parents.
Philosophical.
That's not the philosophical. It's emotional. It's emotional. Your emotions don't want to watch this person die. Your emotions, I don't want to suffer. But Hashem says, you know what, the Torah says differently than you. So you have this all the time in every area of life. You have to have the emotional maturity to understand that you don't make the decisions based on what your emotions are saying. Right? There's good old-fashioned bitachon in Hashem. The bitachon Hashem understands what He's doing, even though it doesn't suit you. So this is all the same scenario. So Moshe Rabbeinu's issue was he couldn't stand to watch people suffer. So that's what Hashem showed him. People suffering. And Hashem said, I don't want you to save them.
So he saved the Jewish people from Egypt. How come? I mean, that's what he did.
But Hashem told him to save the Jews from Egypt. Hashem said, I don't want you to take that baby out. I'm taking them out of Egypt so they'll keep my Torah and not worship idols. So what are you doing saving babies I'm telling you not to save, or eventually going to get them to worship idols?
It's a difficult position to...
Good, but there's a God that tells you what to do. This is the point I'm saying. And on the issues, the failures in our life are... the failures in our life, and when we don't listen... The Torah now tells what to do. The Torah says, give a tenth of your money to tzedakah. That means the following. That means when the economy is bad and you still have a job, you're not allowed to hoard that extra 10%. God's telling you, give the money.
Okay.
He's telling it to you. And you're saying, I'm not going to give the money because I'm afraid that I may not have the money later. You don't need God to speak any louder than that. And there are people who say, I'm not listening to you, God. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Don't with me. It's different. And God will create always the scenario. That's the one that will tug against your emotions. Okay, so do we have the exact one where there's a person dying? Should we save him or not? You're too hooked into that one little scenario, Shelley. It's not just this one scenario. There's different goals.
That's the basis of the argument.
No. The argument was God said no, and you said yes. And you can't emotionally accept the answer of no. You got to take the answer of no. Finished. So what's the difference when you don't gonna give the tzedakah because the economy's bad, and Hashem says yes, and you say no?
But that's clear because it says...
It's not so good. So when God says don't save this baby, it's also clear. And when God says the person's dying, you can't pull the plug, it's also clear.
So God said 6 million have to die, therefore you shouldn't save that one.
We didn't say you shouldn't save them. No, you're getting too caught up in saying it's got to be exactly... Not to say you shouldn't save it, but what you shouldn't say is, God, I can't accept you anymore now that you killed them.
Right. After the...
You were wrong to create that. You were wrong to create that. You were wrong to...
what God said. I mean, he did everything...
He didn't accept it.
Afterwards, he did everything...
No, and then later he took the Egyptians, he let them convert. God didn't want that either. Whenever it hurt Moshe Rabbeinu, he fell a little bit. On his level, it was a failure. So it played itself out again. We always have that challenge, and there you see, and the mistakes are lethal because it hurt him more than anybody else that his grandchildren did not remain Jews.
So just to be clear, God said to him specifically, don't save that baby or any of these babies.
Yeah. He said, I know what I'm doing.
God says so, that's it.
And it's more than don't save. Don't criticize the way I run the world. I know what I'm doing.
Okay, but in lieu of not having that communication with Hashem...
So fine. So when you see a sick baby, you help that sick baby. But God will give you another scenario where He's going to want you to do something you're not going to emotionally be ready to do. And you have to be ready to do that. And it's the same thing. And people, more often than not, don't listen. They don't listen. You know, your wife hurts your feelings, so you're so angry, and let's call a spade. Why do you have all these extramarital affairs in the Jewish community? Why? Boil it down to one thing. You know, the guy says, you know, my wife doesn't treat me right, my wife does this, my wife does that, and I'm entitled to do this. Yeah? Who says? God says you can't. But if you knew what kind of wife I had, God said, I gave you that wife. I knew exactly what kind of wife I was going to give you. And you still can't fool around with people. But she hasn't slept with me for 6 months. It doesn't matter. You still can't sleep around with another girl. What are you talking about? She's not this is not a good... I gave you that wife. Now you work on it and you figure a way around this, but you can't violate my Torah. Same thing. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. We justify everything we do because we're hurting. Hashem says, you're hurting? You have to trust me. There's another way, not your way. That's what it is. Okay, Hashem should help us that we should have that intellect, emotional maturity.